Hello everyone, welcome to another video on Salesforce learning. In this video, we will learn the basics of Salesforce environment. We will log in with the credentials we created in previous video. So this is the very first screen, the Salesforce screen that you see. In previous video, we showed you how can you set up Visual Studio Code. Over here we are showing you the actual Salesforce environment. So Visual Studio Code is an IDE from which you code in that Visual Studio Code and then further deploy in this environment. So this is the environment. So we have set up a developer environment. That means you can play around with this, and Salesforce provide us this free of cost. Now over here you can go to different tabs, you can like go to setup, learn few things. So this is the account object which is generally talked about in Salesforce. So that's a very basic things. You can go to accounts field. So account fields are account name, account number, account order. So these kinds of things you can find over here. This is this gear icon that you see. From here you can go to the setup section, and from setup you can go to various different settings, various different customization in Salesforce. You can go to Apex class. You can go to Apex class from here. So that is the one way to go to the Apex class from here. If I click on Apex classes, this will show me the list of Apex classes if there is any class in the environment. So currently there is no class in the environment. If I want to create a new class, I can create it from here also, or I can go to the developer console. So developer console, I can go it from here, or second way to go to the developer console is from the gear icon. So from here you can directly click on the developer console, and the developer console is nothing but a IDE which is provided by Salesforce company itself. So what happens is, why do we use Visual Studio Code if we already have developer console? So that might be the question. So to answer that thing, Visual Studio Code is necessary to avoid conflicts in the system. So over here in developer console, this is a shared environment. This is the cloud-based environment. And if I open any class, if I open any CLS file which is not yet created, so I'll create one first. So I'll go to file, I'll create a new, and then create a new Apex class. I'll write test apex.cls, or CLS can be added by the Salesforce itself. I'll just write test.testapex, and this is the first class that I have created. Now if you see this class in this particular developer console, this is a shared environment. So if developer 2 also logins to this system and does some code change, so let's say the other developer 2 writes down a method, public static, and then void, and then the first method. So if developer 2 has written this method and has saved that in developer console, the same will be displayed to you. So and let's assume that you both are coding at the same time. So developer 1 is coding public static void first method, and developer 2 is coding public static, let's say, string method. So the code changes will overwrite. So at one point of time you may see string, at another point of time you may see void, but you both are trying to change the same class at the same particular time from the developer console. So that's the main disadvantage of developer console. That's why Salesforce as a company has tied up with Visual Studio Code to improvise on the conflicts. So let's say if developer 1 is doing public static void, she is doing that in her own public in her local, and if developer 2 is doing so, she is doing that in her own locale. So what happens is, during the time they are deploying the code to Visual Studio Code, from Visual Studio Code to the org, so at that particular time they can see like what should be there, is it the string or the void. So they can decide and then deploy the correct code to the system. So Visual Studio Code is used to avoid the merge conflict. So first we taught you about the Visual Studio Code in the previous video, and now we are teaching you about the developer console. So if at first you are a single team of the developer, so you can directly go and log into the developer console. That's not an issue, and you can try to create different classes over here and try to give yourself some logics that can be anything like multiplication of two numbers, addition of two numbers. So start from as simple as hello world or these kind of things. So it says missing return statement. I'll write missing return statement as return hello world. Provide semicolon. Public. Spelling went wrong. So that was a spelling mistake. Now I corrected it out. This is public now. And now on the basic note, I was teaching you around how can we do and what can we do around the developer console. So developer console is one IDE that Salesforce provides us. Though that's a shared environment, I have already told the disadvantage of it. But currently, since I am the only single developer, I can use it, and I am demonstrating you something which is as basic as printing the hello world on the screen. So in order to print something on the screen, we use system.debug in Salesforce. System is a class and debug is a method. So I'll just write down my first print statement. Now if I click on execute, this executes my code. This executes this statement currently. So what this window that I have currently opened is known as the anonymous apex. So anonymous apex is something that we use while having some script that we want to run. So let's say we have already scheduled a class, we want to run certain script post that, or we want to do some operation which we want to perform post deployment. So we will talk more about it in upcoming videos. But the point that I'm trying to say is that we are using anonymous apex generally to run any script. Currently, we are using it to run a print statement on the screen. So system.debug and my first print statement. So if I click on execute, this will run this script and this will print something on the screen. I have clicked on open log. So if I click on open log, this will automatically open the log for me. Post I execute the script. So I'll click on execute. My logs are now open. If I click on debug only, that will just show me the debug statements. So it shows me on the screen my first print statement. So that should be your very first coding experience with Apex class. Now, but the point is that I have not yet used Apex class, right? So what if I want to use the Apex class, my very first Apex class, which is named as test Apex, and I want to print hello world on the screen? Isn't that exciting? Writing my first hello world in Salesforce. So I'll simply write system.debug and then my first Apex class output is, and then a plus statement. Plus statement is used to concatenate two strings. So string is an argument that we used in system classes debug method. So I am currently using this system.debug statement to print hello world, my first programming experience. So how do I do that? I'll write test apex and then the method name. So over here, if you notice, I first write down the Apex class name and then the method name. Generally in Java or some other language, in OOPS concept, we create objects, right? But now we are using the class only, right? So if you would remember, in any programming language, there is a use of static keyword. I have currently used static in my method name. That means I can use the class name directly while referring to any method which is static in this particular class. So if I declare a method as a static, I can directly use that method with the class name. I need not to create any object. So over here, I'm now running the script again. And this prints hello world for me. My first Apex class output is hello world. So just to tell you the basics about it, the basics of Apex class, now you can do more of programming over here by opening up the developer console. So we will learn more. What more can we do in Salesforce? How can we use point and click tools? So just to give you just a fresher programming experience, I taught you about the developer console first, because that excites all of us, right? So we will learn more about it in the upcoming videos. Thank you and happy learning.